Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 197.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on professional club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time. It's great for me to have putter fitting and putting instruction guru Bruce Rearick from Burnt Edges Consulting back on the show. About a year ago when we last talked, he noted that he's been continuing to follow a dream that he's had for many years, creating a specialty line of putters based on his continual efforts to ask why about how putters can help golfers putt their best. When I was planning for what to title this episode, I was going to call it Better Than Average, but I think now I'll call it Putters Really Matter. You'll hear a lot from Bruce today about some of his knowledge about why putters really do matter.
Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf, changing golfers' lives, one golfer at a time.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 197 of the Golf Improvement Podcast, in spite of my crazy voice. Well, welcome back, putter fitting and instruction guru Bruce Rearick with Burnt Edges Consulting. Bruce, you didn't know this. You did know we last talked in November 2021, but a week ago I checked, and that episode was the second most downloaded of all the 190 plus episodes.
No kidding.
Isn't that cool? But vision's kind of important.
Relatives, Tony. I didn't think I had that many relatives. So that's a good thing. No, that's great. That makes me feel real good. You were the first one I ever did.
Oh yeah,
first podcast I ever did. Way back whenever that. I don't know. I remember what number I was the first time.
It's somewhere in the under the 100s, I think. So,
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Near the end of that one, though, that interview, we talked a little bit about your personal dream to create some putter designs.
Right.
And you use these words. I think that's the title for this podcast, to help golfers putt better than average. And so maybe a month or so ago, I thought I'd ask you if you give an update on what's going on with that. So I think that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So this should be fun.
That'll be fun, yeah. I got a prototype sitting right in front of me.
Wow. Well, let's catch up a little first. What I think you did mention offline that you're actually now retired from your other job and you're doing putting things and coaching primarily now. So why don't you give our listeners a little update on what's going on?
Well, Tony, I guess a couple of years ago, I started working with Mike Adams and Terry Rolls in the Ultimate Golf, what they call the Ultimate Golf Lesson. And they asked me to join David Adele in the putting side of it. And I was explaining what I had found and the things that we've discussed over the years on the podcast. And I started to look to see what they were doing in full swing, and did any of what they talk about apply to putting, because I've always been fascinated with how similarities, like if a guy will have a fade bias in his full swing in, and he'll hold the release and cut across a little bit in his putting stroke, just something simple like that. So I've been really diving into that for the last couple of weeks. We're working on the influence of the trail hand and finding a balanced an anchor point for your putting stroke, instead of just automatically telling somebody that they're weight forward or weight back or whatever it is. We're looking at how individuals might differ in that way. Also, our friend David Orr asked me one time, he said, Bruce, have you ever considered what the influence of the inner ear in your vision. And I hadn't. So I looked into that, and I found some really fascinating stuff there, which basically says that if you're balanced over the ball, you're going to see the line better. So, just the usual, more research, and I'll take some time to do research. Then I go on the road and share what I found. And then, I've got online clients in 10, 12 countries. So I'm staying pretty busy.
It is interesting you talk about the inner ear stuff. I've heard David talk about that a number of times.
Yeah.
When he's done different things. Yeah.
You're always, David's like a lot of good instructors that I think the question is always why. Why did I just see what I saw? And so you run through that. Why does this player see it better if he leans on his back foot than he might on his front foot? And it's fascinating. We have a vision test, and we put just a basic yardstick on the ground, and you get over it and you'd say, well, that looks left or that looks right. And just by moving their weight front foot to back foot, we can literally dial them into where they see it better. It was just that easy. And so now that's an integral part of my teaching now, is finding that, I call it the anchor spot. How are you going to set your weight over the ball?
So even a little beyond just the vision part, the combination of vision and balance.
Evolution of that, I think.
Yeah,
I think it. And instead of saying they were, at first I would have said they were separate, but now it's all one conversation. Wow. And then so once we get you over the ball where you belong, then we can trust what you see better, and don't have to worry about that. And then we can move into, how do you need to move to get to the ball position that you see it best from, and then what putter swings in concert with you in that position, and that takes it to the putter fitting aspect of it.
I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I got the opportunity to see this thing about Leonardo da Vinci this last weekend. And just, you talking about this just makes me think about that, I mean, the people that are best at a lot of things just are always asking why. And boy, was he a why guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating.
I think it's a common thread. I mean, working with Mike Adams and Terry Rolls, who are brilliant full swing instructors, and they're the same mindset, the curiosity, well, I wonder why he did that, or I wonder why that player does that, or what would force him to do something that we don't think is correct or is not beneficial to their swing. And so the three of us, the group of us that working together, and we have this no outliers, that there's no such thing as doing anything wrong. If we know your tendencies and your characteristics, we can build a golf swing that works for you. And
wow.
It's amazing. It's really fun. That it came this late in my career tickles the heck out of me. Instead of sitting around and, this is what we used to do. Now I'm right in the middle of some new stuff, which is fun.
Yeah. Well, a number of times in the past, you shared that one of your dreams was to create a custom line of putter designs.
Yeah.
But I don't think you ever said, kind of how that all started for you. Why? What kind of got you thinking that way?
Well, I think the biggest thing, the best way to describe it is that, I was lucky enough to work for Arnold Palmer for a number of years, and I spent a lot of time with Mr. Palmer. And to watch him go through, and I've told this story on your podcast before about how he would just go through bag after bag of putters, and the stroke would change as he pulled different putters out of the bag. And you ask him, well, I says, yeah, this move works better with this, and this works better with this, and this works better with that. And that was before we even had a lot of options. Now we got thousands of different options, right? And so that started that fascination, and say the putter matters, okay? And then the frustration of having a vision in my head of a putter that would fit a player, and then not being able to get him in that putter because the manufacturers, to their need, are building putters to sell. They're not necessarily building putters for Tony and Bruce. And so if I need one without lines that has, a certain amount of offset and a certain amount of loft and you can't find it. You have to go to someone that builds them bespoke, like like the late Byron Morgan or Kerry Lugosi, or all kinds of new guys that are getting into it. And even then you can't get what you need because they're building what they're set up to build. So what we tried to do is find a way to have the putters available that people need, what they need. And it hasn't been easy. It's been a lot of fun, but it hasn't been easy to figure it out. So.
Yeah, well, if it was easy, you'd probably have your name out there already with what I said I was calling the Rearick putters, right?
Yeah. We've got some people that we're talking to, and no, so it's going great, and it's just time and resources, and then do you want to take on the big guns, right? Do you want to go out there and stick your name out there and get your neck broke because you got an idea? So
yeah.
Some guys are braver than I am, I guess. I don't know, but no, it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a good exercise because I've learned a huge amount to help my clients, to understand how the putter design and how that all works. So
yeah. So I bet we could talk for 2 hours, right? I mean, to say what are the main design characteristics of Rearick putters, how would you kind of put that in a little ball and talk about what they are?
I think I can do that.
We'll see, right? Yeah, right.
We'll find out. Right? You'll have to cut me off after the first hour.
No,
The number one is that what you have to remember when you're building a set of clubs is that if you're using marketing material to build a set of clubs, you're not really talking about what might work for you as much as you are the appeal of the sales pitch, right? And so in putters, what it is it's more about the appearance than it is about how it feels. So it's a visual exercise to get fit in a putter in a lot of ways because I want it to look a certain way. What I'm looking at is what can I do to the balance and the influence of the shaft into the head and all those things so that I can match the feel that's required for you to get to a certain ball position. So like in our system, we've got 9 different basic ball positions that we're going to match a stroke to. And those are the 9 profiles.
Right.
Now there are certain models that work great or lousy depending on the profile, right? And so you're going to be a linear player where you're going to swing the shaft on a straight line or a straight plane, or you're going to be what David Adele calls a radial player where you're going to arc the shaft with the head. Okay? And so immediately you get an opinion, well, straight would be better. Well, if I'm a player, then this goes to thanks again to Mike Adams and Terry Rolls. If I'm a player where my arms or my wingspan is shorter than my height, it is very difficult, if not impossible, for me to be a linear player because of physical limitations. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be. So let's just put it this way. Let's just start here, Tony. I've got toe hang putters for the radial players, and I've got face balance putters for the linear players. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, right.
And what we found over the years was that you could have a pretty good sized arc in your stroke based on the distance that you were from the ball, but you still swing the shaft on plane. You've seen the ones where they have the little rod that goes up against the shaft and the player swings the putter where the shaft stays right on the rod and stays linear, right? Yeah. And so that linear player can use face balance no matter how big his arc is. And it took me a little while to figure that out because guys were doing tests and they're saying, "Oh, we're not seeing the difference." And I said, "Well, I know there's a difference. What is unique about this player that they just tested that I'm missing?" And that's what it was. It was the linear aspect. I swing the shaft on plane or I arc the shaft. And then that changes my impression of how you should. And then so what we were able to do then is we were able to take that and apply it to the profile. So we know the guys that arc the shafts, what it looks like. We know the guys that swing on a linear plane, we know what it looks like, and we can fit it accordingly. So I needed putters that worked within those parameters. And so we started to look at what works best. Well, the big discovery for me was that the short slant necks and the mallets, we didn't see the play and transition that we did in other putters. So if you have a double bend face balance putter, a lot of times in transition, we'll see an opening or closing in transition. And it's just basically the way the putter's balanced and how you move, and it kind of twists the head. Where when the short slant necks came out in the mallets, all of a sudden we weren't seeing that in those putters. Now, the problem was the manufacturers were only putting the slant necks in one spot. So in my putters, I'm using a short slant neck, but I have different locations on the same putter. The other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to create a putter where the MOI was balanced to while you were in motion as opposed to impact. So most putters are built to mask the impact and and give you a better feel for your result when you hit the ball. I'm using MOI as a consideration of how that putter swings. We know that high MOI putters have a tendency not to rotate. We know that lower MOI putters, or depending on where the center of gravity is, they'll rotate more freely. So the closer you get to the face, the faster it rotates, the farther back it goes. Well, we decided that if we just built one stock head and moved the neck around, we would have a consistent. We could eliminate that as a design feature. The other thing that's my total pet peeve, and I see it more and more as we get good at videotaping strokes, is when the player shortens the radius of their stroke. And what I mean by that is if you picture the stroke as a big circle, they start back on one plane and then they shorten their arms coming through so they can match the sweet spot to the ball, because the sweet spot's higher than if it was sitting on the ground. So I've designed a putter that I don't have to do that. It's got a deeper face and you're going to hit it. You don't have to manipulate it to hit it square. And the immediate feedback on the prototypes was, Bruce, this is a lot easier to hit solid.
Wow.
So all it was is it's not new. The Response ZT McGregor Jacks big-headed putter. It's not anything like that, but that was the theory behind that, was to get the sweet spot on the same line as the center of the ball without having to lift it or change planes.
Yeah, that big old monster one that he had.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah. And so you roll it better because the sweet spot matches the ball center of percussion or center of gravity or center of mass or whatever you want to call it. And the ball comes off the putter better. And so all of us are searching for a way to hit it solid, right? Well, I just felt like it was easier to build a putter that was easier to hit on that spot. And then what happened was, because of the way it's designed, the MOI goes up because the face is deeper.
Now you're talking because when I talk about this, you're talking the MOI of the head and not the MOI of the club when you're talking.
Exactly.
Right.
And you and I have talked about how to incorporate a measurement, the MOI of the club. How does that influence the putting stroke? And I still think it does. I just don't know how to. That's another unanswered question for me.
Yeah.
Is that certain tempos and certain rhythms and certain speeds would require a different MOI value than others, right? Where you, as a club fitter, you're looking to match them up. I'm looking at what's the specific number that I want to match the stroke, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
And I still think it's there. I felt that way from the first time I was introduced to the concept of motion, matching, MOI matching for clubs. I said, shoot, putters is where it's at. That's the one where you need it, because the body's going to move in a certain rhythm and a certain tempo, and there's a weight and you and I both know there's a weight and a distribution of weight that works better than some, and depending on the player, right? So,
and you're going to be able, I'm guessing, to and it's tricky in the world we live today to be able to get weights that kind of are really the kind of weights that people need in terms of putters, right?
Yeah, and we just went with lighter, and we're going to add the weight. We're going to add the weight as we need it. Instead of it's a lot harder to take it away. The guys, the manufacturers are learning that. They build a 360 or 380 gram head, and their customer comes back and it's too heavy. There's nothing they can do. Where for us, it's a little tape, a little lead, a little whatever it takes, right? And so it's a lot easier to add weight than it is to subtract. So we just started with a lighter head. And what I'm hoping is that there'll be 3 basic head weights. There'll be light, moderate, and no one would consider heavy, but that'll be the heaviest one that we need.
It wouldn't be 400 or 410 or something.
No, I think 350 grams or 360 grams is plenty.
Yeah.
And so they'd range from, maybe 320 to 360. And I have it, and all that is blade width. So it's a stock looking head. There's a narrow blade, there's a moderate blade, and then there's a deep blade.
Yeah.
And, just minor. But there's some other stuff that we did. We made it with a rocker sole so that you're not thrown off balance by trying to get your putter to sit flat on an uneven surface.
Yeah, that's a thing that's one of the quiet things that nobody ever talks about.
Exactly, right? You got to side hill the ball's below your feet, and you watch the player lean into that putt to get the putter to sole reasonably well, right?
Yeah.
Well, what we've learned is once you're off balance, once your center of gravity is out past your toes, you're in trouble and your hands will react. And so we know you're going to miss. And so because all the practice you put in a balanced position is out the window when you're off balance on the golf course. And that gets into a whole nother topic of discussion for me about block practice and flat surfaces and all that. And how we're really working against ourselves in a lot of ways because we practice. The few high level players that I work with, the number one reason they miss is a change in ball position. They practice at a certain putt. Imagine this: you stood there and you made 100 in a row, repeating the same putt, right? And I walk up and I don't let you move your feet, and I move the ball an inch in two different directions. All that practice just went out the window. Yet when I get on the golf course, it is so easy for me to get that ball out of position that much. It's scary. And too far forward or too far back or too far away from me or whatever it is. And all of that. So we wanted a putter that would sit where if you build a posture, you can make that putter work for you. And the biggest thing is that it's going to come with an instruction manual of how to use it.
Yeah. Huh, that's unusual.
We're going to basically tell you this is why it was built this way, and this is why we suggest you use it.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole package of stuff. And like I said, we're getting to it. I'm not on the mallet blade craze. Putters are putters, and I can talk you into just about anything. And if I can do it, so can the manufacturers.
Yeah.
So if I walk out there, you and I, you're putting bad. You're a tour player, Tony, and you're putting bad. And you walk out, and there's all the putter manufacturers have got putters lined up, right? And they know the mallets. They've got the consumer convinced that the mallets work best.
Yeah.
Well, what's the majority of the putters you're going to have to choose from if you need to make a change?
Well,
I'm going to try a mallet, and then they're going to tell you. They're going to say, well, you're going to get tighter dispersion, or you're going to get, well, nobody's looking for tighter dispersion as much as they are, can I get one that goes in the hole? Well, if I mask all the things, all the feels that I need to learn how to make, a putt, then if I mask all that with a mallet, then I'm just going to float. I'm just going to stay level. Strokes gains average, I'll just stay right there. So now that's not to say that mallets don't work great. They do. But it's not try a mallet because it's better. It's try a mallet because it's better for me.
It matches what you need in terms of what your stroke is. Yeah.
If I'm a linear player, and I've got a pattern of movement that allows me to be neutral, then boy, mallets are great. But I see a lot of guys out there with big grips and mallets that don't have a prayer. And they're thinking that if I get a putter that's more forgiving, it'll be more forgiving to me. No, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
And so, and look at the ones that, if you look at the guys that we really like how they putt, with some exceptions, of course, but the guys that everybody says, what do you think of Cam Smith, or what do you think of this guy, or what do you think? They're all using blades.
Oh yeah.
They're all still using blades. So, I'm mystified by it. I don't have I'm just telling you that I wouldn't trust what somebody tells me to choose a putter because it was what everybody else was using. Right? Yeah.
But I see a lot, with the kid you talked before, the kids, at least half a dozen of them have a mallet of a certain type, and we won't talk about which one it is.
Well, right.
Everyone.
Or I'm an arm lock, or I'm a whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so because they did it. We joked in the past about the lemmings that go off the cliff because the leader goes off the cliff. Well, that's competitive players in putting. Yeah. If I get my brains beat in by a guy that's got a certain type of putter, I'm going to have one next day, and I'm going to use it, right? Yeah. But there's a feel component, and it tickles me when I've always had players come to me. Well, Bruce, I'm a feel player. Yeah, what does that mean? Can you tell me what it feels like to roll a ball 20 feet without having a visual target? No. Oh, well, then maybe not so much visual, or a feel player is a visual player, right? Yeah. And if you are visual, then why are you a bad aimer? And so it's an argument, constant argument, but it's one that needs to be discussed if you're going to be the level of putter that you want to be to compete. So,
well, see, I told you at the start of this little thing, we could probably talk for 2 hours about it.
We could, but I'm not. It's not. I'm not worried about the finishes. I'm gonna let the guys that are really good at those do those.
Yeah.
And all I'm gonna do, it's gonna be a hammer. It's gonna be a tool, and it's gonna be feel based. And I can see it very clearly. I can see us fitting these putters with your eyes closed.
Wow.
Because I want to know what it feels like. I want to know, did you hit that solid? Could you tell that you hit it solid? Do you feel it at any point? Do you feel where you feel torque in your hands? Because that's a lot of it, right? Players reacting to torque. So where do we want it to torque? Or do we not want it to torque at all? Or all those things. And we think we've got it down to a pretty simple, really, of what works and what doesn't. And shaft axis, where the shaft crosses the face, is the biggest one. The closer you are to it, the more we want it in the center. The farther you are from it, the more we want it in the heel.
Yeah, yeah. So I remember once, this is a little, I didn't put this in the questions, but when you did the Plugged In Golf interview, there was at least one putter that you said, it's almost impossible to get. What was the Profile 6, or which one was that?
Right. We got one now.
Talk about what that profile is a little bit.
All right. So the ideal at the time when I did that, we didn't have TaylorMade had not made the spider, the slant neck spider. And it turns out that was the answer. What we did was we wanted a putter with some freedom in the toe, right? So that, and then by moving the center of gravity deep into the putter, back into the back of the blade, when you start it back, it will rotate. It will allow you, it will be free to rotate going back because the weight, the center of mass is pulling, right?
Yeah.
And it pulls the face open. And then when you pull it forward, right, it resists. So that putter would hang open. And what happened was we started to see these left path. If you're familiar with the 9 profiles, 3, 6, and 9 are arcs that go left.
Right.
And we started seeing the guys that were using those putters have the arcs that finished left. And so we realized that, hey, they found the one that they found it's not closing. So they reverse engineered it to make the arc go left to get the face to square. Jason Day had an arc that went left when he had his great year with that spider. It was arcing left.
And a large majority of people arc left too, in terms of sort of human beings, right? The normal humans, right?
Exactly. How you use your trail arm, how you set up, how you tilt your spine, that all kind of lends itself to a straight back to left. And before Tiger, when we first started measuring, that was the stroke we saw with all good players, was an arc that finished left. Now it was zero at impact, right? Because of the nature of the arc, you can find zeros on any size arc, right? You can get zeros as you measure it. So what we found was that that drag, that slow to close in the mallet was perfect for that type of stroke.
Yeah.
And then we see that, and then the guys would come back to me and say, yeah, but Bruce, it doesn't really matter. And I say, well, if it doesn't matter, then why did that work? Why did their stroke change? Why did their stroke change based on the putter they had in their hand? And so I'm still firmly entrenched in the belief that what you swing makes a difference, probably more now than ever.
Yeah.
And I found the answers to I found the answers to some of, like the question that you just asked. That was a problem for us, but now we've got every putter we ever needed to go ahead and make that stroke. And I think if we had access to a lot of fitting data, random people, that they would tell you that they see that stroke more, like you said, more than any other.
Yeah.
More than any other.
Now, when we talked, the last time, you talked about, you're a real proponent of not masking feedback in putters.
Yeah.
So kind of how far should you go with that? Do you feel like the ones that you're designing now are going to be pretty much so that you're not going to do that, or,
we're not going to mask the feel, but we're going to try. We want to try and we don't want to drop off in ball speed because you hit it on the toe. Yeah. So I can do both, right? I can maintain the speed. It just feels bad. And that's probably the dirty little secret of club manufacturing, is that back in the day when we first started fitting clubs, what we figured out was that if I could change the feel, I could talk you into buying it. And so you got a lot of different sounds. You used to have a lot of conversations about the sound of a driver. And so it sounded bad, but it went like a bandit. We couldn't sell it because it sounded bad. Nobody was paying any attention to the better numbers, right? Yeah. So the manufacturer spent gazillion bucks to fix that problem, and now it sounds good and goes far. So that's a good thing, right? But for example, if you take let's just use my old favorite, an 8802, all right? And you set the robot up so that you move you play from the same ball position, and you move the robot instead of moving the ball position and then saying that the results are different. So I'm putting from the exact same spot to the exact same target, and I move the robot to strike it on the heel of the toe. You don't lose as much speed on the toe hit with the 8802 as you think. And the reason is because of where it sits best and plays best, the toe is rotating faster than the heel when you make the strike. So the speed is higher slightly on the toe than it is in the center of the putter, and certainly on the heel. And so the toe strike on an 8802 will roll out pretty good. All right. But it feels awful. It feels like I mishit it completely. Yeah. So that feel that runs up your arm, that's what you don't like. You're not paying a whole lot of, if you miss it, you miss it. You're probably not paying a whole lot of attention beyond that, but you don't like that jarring feeling, right? So we figured out that we can design putters that feel good when I hit them on the toe. Well, if you're in my position where a guy comes to me, he's not coming to me to not three putt anymore. He said, Bruce, I got to make more 10 to 20 foot.
10 to 20. Everybody. Right? Everybody's got to make
your college team, right? Your guys on your team. Good ball strikers. I'm hitting 14, 15, 16 greens around, and I'm only making 2 birdies. And so I got to if I don't give you some feedback on why you miss, I'm going to have a hard time helping you find a way to make them. Because it's all connected, right? I have to match what I feel to what I see, or what I judge, or what I, see and feel. If I'm a aim point guy, I use my feet to aim or to feel the break. Yeah. So I have to match that. So, a long time ago, a pretty wise guy told me, Bruce, it's way more important what that putt feels like than what it looks like. And that's more and more, that's true, right? Because even if you relate speed control entirely to feel, which I think you can make a solid argument that it is, then if that's the case, then you better not be messing around with the feedback that you get, because how are you going to know, right? Yeah. We do a drill with my better players that it's an old one. Manuel Delatorre used to use it, and Manuel would have you at a putt, and before you open your eyes, you had to tell him immediately if it was long or short based on the strike. That's got to be one of the best drills I've ever had for speed control. Huh. Because you match up what's my expectations of feel to get the ball to roll the right distance. And it's funny, guys will hit them low on the face and think they're long, then come up short. It's just important to hit the ball in the center of the face. It's just, there's no getting around it, right?
There's no better winning approach to doing it than hitting in the center.
Yeah, I can get away with it. Maybe I can get away with it full swing, and maybe it is helpful. I've got, if I get better performance across the face at 100 miles an hour, I'm probably going to be better. But at 5 miles an hour, I got to hit it in the center. I just have to. It's so hard to judge it. Now, somebody's going to come back. Somebody about my age is going to come back at us and go, well, Bruce, what about the guys that used to hit it purposely on the toe? Well, they knew what they were doing, right? They knew that I have an expectation of this field, what this field is going to do. But the biggest, I'm going back to the putter design, and I'm rambling like I always do, but there's a vertical sweet spot as well that we don't consider, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that vertical sweet spot has a lot to do with the feel of controlling the distance. And if you take we've done a lot of weird tests. We've had players go out, play a round of golf, and say, in that round of golf, how many first putts did you hit in the middle of the face? Just judge it, right? Just mark it on the card. And they'll come back less than half most of the time. Of the ones that you hit in the middle of the face, how many did you make? They'll make about half of those. So it leads you to believe that if I hit them all in the middle of the face, is it possible that I'll make half of those? I've got one player from Ohio. She's playing Division I now. That's her whole goal. All she wants to do is hit it in the middle of the face, because she says, Bruce, if I hit it in the middle of the face, it's got a chance to go in. Or I hit it on the sweet spot, or however you want to describe it. So that's what we want to do, is we want to make it easier for you to find that. And if I make the feedback such that if I do hit it on the toe or the heel, I feel it, then I'll go find the right spot. I'll make the adjustments to find the right spot.
It's an old school. I heard that recently from somebody else too, talking about that they just totally want to learn to hit it in the middle face all the time. Right? Yeah,
we just want to flush it.
Yeah,
and the concept goes back to when we first when Ping took on the world and made a cavity back iron, and the forged guys, the blade guys said, yeah, but I can't feel if I hit it on the toe or the heel. How am I going to learn to be a good ball striker? Because we didn't have all the other toys, right?
Yeah.
And so all I had was, if I hit it in the middle, I hit it good. And for me, maybe I'm too old, but I think that's got some real value. If I didn't hit it in the middle, I didn't make a good stroke.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you see a lot of clubs from all those guys that they're all in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're playing cavity backs.
I think years ago, Dave Pels did the one where, hit by handicap your impact point on the putter, and it just was clear as a bell that the 25 handicapper had a spread about the size of a nickel, where a guy like Tiger Woods had just one spot that he hit every putt.
Yeah.
And well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's all they needed to know, right? And maybe it doesn't matter how I approach it. Maybe it doesn't matter if I come from the left or from the right. If the face is square and I hit it in the same spot, I'm probably going to get a pretty good result. And so, and then we find things to be concerned about often as teachers, because we got to have something to talk about. But maybe a lot of what we're working on just doesn't matter as much as we thought it did. And that's going to scare some guys, but that's okay. It'll be for the good of it.
Yeah.
It's hard enough. You're not going to lose your job, because guys are going to need to learn how to hit it in the middle of the putter, and they're going to need help.
Yeah.
And so it's as much or maybe more than full swing, it's a team effort between a putting coach and his student.
Yeah.
Because we spend a lot of time in each other's head,
Yeah. So what's the update then on where you are finding people to do things? Kind of where are things?
Yeah, we've had about 6 months of the prototype being out there and got some really good feedback. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough money to make a prototype for variables for a lot of different strokes, but for the ones that I built it for the one that I felt like the most would fit. Some really good feedback. They really like the idea of hitting it solid and being able to hit it solid. They like the idea of me describing what their stroke should look like based on the putter that we fit them in. So we're talking to some people about raising the money to do it. It'll be a one at a time thing. It won't be something that you'll go to. There might be some friends of mine that have worked with me in the past that understand the concept, that they might have them available, but it'll basically be a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
We're going to ask people it's a commitment. It's not an experiment. If you're experimenting, we're not your guy, right?
Yeah, right.
We're just saying we're going to offer what we've learned. That's all I'm going to promise. I'm going to offer you everything that I've learned, and I'm in it with you on the long haul. And so that we're going to find out if you can help, if there's another way to do it. And if there is, then hopefully, people will be encouraged. Not everybody will, and people will take the information that they might get from a fit and find one that works too. So I'm not trying to change the world at all. I'm just saying that I thought there was a better way, and there's a design this design is way more versatile, Tony. If you like to, for example, if you play an oversized mallet and you like to putt from off the green, you have to make some adjustments in your setup to do that. You have to, because that thing that won't swing easily in longer turf, right?
Yeah.
You can't. It's really hard to de-loft a mallet. You really don't want to lean the shaft forward in a mallet, because that throws everything off, right? You're picking up the back end. It's driving the putter down. I mean, it just doesn't work. So this one's built that you can play it from a lot of different spots without a lot of adjustment. Like I said, it's got the old school bullseye type sole where you can set it down and it looks the same regardless of where I'm standing. Just those kind of things. So we found some things about the weight that we were able to balance the putter a little bit better because we lifted the weight in the heel and the toe. So instead of being low and back, we're actually even with the sweet spot, left and right. That increased the ball speed on the toe and the heel strikes. That's the other thing, is that you don't lose. There's not a difference between a heel strike and a toe strike on these putters if I fit it correctly. It comes off the same. If I lose 10% in the toe, I'll lose 10% in the heel. Where on a lot of putters, on the magical designs, I call them, that the loss is greater in one than the other, and you start to see biases. People have a tendency to Tiger hit his Newport on the toe, toward the toe, high and on the toe. Well, that was the safe spot to hit it.
Well, and that's because, I'm guessing earlier you said because it's rotating more, and so it's a little more
exactly.
speed.
And and I think I heard one of the guys from one of the manufacturers one time tell me Brucey had no choice. That's where he had to hit it, and based on his stroke, with the high rotation stroke. And that's probably right. So, are you going to be the one to tell Tiger he should have changed his stroke? I'm not. I'm going to say, what'd you do? And will it help somebody else? Will that method help somebody else? It's like, our friend David and his work with Brad Faxon, and what David's learning from Fax, and you guys got a unique way of doing things. Does how he does, and sharing Fax and David sharing that information could be helpful to a lot of people. Then there's some people that is, man, I can't do that at all. Okay. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have some conversations with Aaron Badley. Well, Aaron's one of the great putters of all time, but I can't teach it. I can't teach you what he does.
Yeah.
I understand what he does, but I can't teach it. It's unique to Aaron.
Well, and maybe Cam Smith too.
Exactly.
Everybody's kind of saying that he's what he is, or Brian Gay. They have some unique things that they're doing.
We can identify what they do. We can understand. I can understand that Cam's is an arm-based stroke. There's not a lot of core rotation or engagement of the chest of the core in his stroke. He's basically swinging his arms in front of his body like a Stan Utley. And so. Does that work for you? It might, but if my arms are shorter than my height, if my wingspan is shorter than my height, swinging my arms independently of my chest is very difficult. My head starts to move.
Yeah.
So we're starting with like I said, with the help of the guys I mentioned, with Mike and Terry and the biomechanics and the work that they've done, I'm starting to understand why certain guys are swing the putter a certain way. And maybe maybe I can recommend to you, say, Tony, you'd be better off if you kind of connect up with your arms and rotate your chest because of your biomechanics, not because that would be the best way. Just, is that easier for you to do? And can I keep you in balance so that you're not moving all over the ball when you do it if I balance all these things out? And we're finding that, yeah, we can. We can.
Neat stuff. Now, any other little final things as we kind of end that you just want to?
Well, I think the biggest thing that where I'm going to be, and like it matters, but we're gonna really start pushing this conversation of feel based as opposed to visual based, right? How does the putter swing, and what does it feel like when you swing it, and what does it feel like when you swing it with your eyes closed? Because we do a test now, because we test for trail hand bias in your stroke. Should you be weak or strong or neutral? Instead of me dictating that, what feels best to you? How is your arm built? Do you have an internal rotation in your shoulder, or external? All those things that the biomechanic guys know. We have a test that what feels most stable to you, right? And so we'll give you a putter that's basically set up for the distance you are from the ball, and we'll ask you to swing it in varying degrees of weak to strong. And in every case, player goes, Bruce, this feels better, feels more stable. I don't feel any twisting of the putter when I swing it this way. And so they might be on top, claw style, or they might be dead under it, or somewhere in between. And it's caused me to think that most people don't match up very well. And what I can tell you for the last year and a half is that when I get them matched up, it's a drop the mic moment a lot of times.
Yeah.
And they go, man, this feels so much better, Bruce. I'm not, my head's not moving. I'm not doing all those stuff that you told me not to do. And I'm not creating tension to not do it. Because the biggest problem that I had over the years was I could tell you what to do or what not to do. Here, try this or do this. But a lot of times that recommendation created a lot of stress and a lot of tension. And then I lost my feel for the movement. So I lost my feel for speed, and I didn't get any better. And so now we're figuring out that, yeah, if you get yourself matched up biomechanically to your tendencies, then you can swing with more flow and more freedom and do all those things that the guys understand that work, right? How many times do you hear on TV that they go, oh, I don't like his stroke because it doesn't have any flow. It just doesn't flow. And there's all kinds of guys that you hear that. I won't pick on any one player, but in fairness to them, maybe no one has explained to them that they've contorted themselves in such a way that their stroke will never have any flow. And you tried to do it the right way, right? You tried to do it based on common knowledge of what you should do in your putting stroke. And all of a sudden now you're stuck. You're going, well, I'm supposed to have my hand here, and I'm supposed to have my head here, and I'm supposed to have my shoulders here, and I can't move. And so
what did I do wrong?
paralysis by suggestion, and so if we let them move, and how many times have you run into a player that says, boy, I'm just better if I just swing one-handed, right?
Yeah.
I just hit it one-handed. Don't even look, just hit it one-handed. Well, that's because they took away all the obstacles that they had. And so we're learning why would a guy be lead arm dominant and not trail arm dominant? And why would a player, we're starting to understand why. Because if you look at it like I build a wall and I got to crash through the wall, if I take the wall away, I putt better. Well, how can I take the wall away? So if I play with a really weak grip, then I don't need much of a left side. I'm going to swing it with my right arm, right?
Yeah.
But if I play with a really strong right hand grip, I don't want to extend the right arm because that'll close the face. So I'm going to be more lead hand dominant. So that's why we see a lot of what I call underplayers, guys that play with really strong grips, left hand low. They figured it out on their own to put the lead arm in a dominant position and then just let the trail arm push.
Yeah. So
just things like that we're learning that I didn't know. I knew before, but I didn't know why, and now it's all been made clear to me. And again, I got to thank Terry and Mike and the Ultimate Golf Lesson for letting me ride along, because it's been a real game changer for me, and to just be able to be better at communicating it.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a few things that I've learned, obviously, but it's 15 years ago, you and I are talking, I'd say, yeah, you have to be balanced over your feet. We don't want you off balance. We want your hands where they swing the easiest. We know all that stuff, but we don't know how to tell you how to get there.
Yeah.
Now we've got a better idea how to tell you how to get there.
Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, it's been fun. Certainly been fun. Got to thank you for all your help. All these podcasts have.
Well, like I said, it was exciting to find out. Yeah, it's exciting to find out that a lot of people have listened to it. And it was so funny recently, too, because, a couple other people that I know telling me stuff about, gee, I saw this stuff about vision. Yeah. And I go back to them and I say, look at this episode.
Right.
Somebody talked about that,
we were early on, and we started to share this stuff, and same with David, same with all the guys, the putting guys that you have on, right?
Yeah.
That we're all sharing. Hey, look what we found. Look what we discovered, right?
Yeah.
And started to share that stuff, and then guys picked up on it, and they took it, and they've taken it to. It's been fun to watch it. I mean, it's just been really fun to watch it. I think it's fair to say that, back when we started talking about the vision test, there weren't a half a dozen guys using one. And now I don't think there are very few instructors that don't have something like that incorporated into their model. So that's just really cool.
I saw another one recently where somebody put like 4 or 5 dots. Okay.
Yeah.
You probably saw that video, right? I won't say who it was. But
right.
4 or 5 dots, and that's a very well-respected instructor,
Sure.
Something similar.
I gotta share with you one that we discovered. We hardly ever use it because it takes about a half a day to set it up. But if you'll take golf balls, take a straight putt, and take golf balls and put them 1 foot apart on the chalk line.
Yeah.
Okay. And then use a laser, put them about 1 foot apart, right on a straight putt. Then pull the laser away. Then ask the players to randomly walk up to the balls and say, "Do you see? Is that a straight line?" I'll go, "Oh no, it curves in the middle. See where it curves right there? Or it curves at the end, or it curves at the start." And we found that, though, just to give you an idea of how our teaching's evolved, right? That's how we figure out where does a person look, where should they look when they aim. So take this for example. 2/3 of the way to the hole, Tony, all of a sudden that starts to bend in your vision, right? The straight line actually looks a little curved. Well, isn't that the last place you want to look when you're aiming? You don't want to aim at the apex of the break, because I'm not going to see it accurately anyway, right? So it's just fascinating how this has all evolved. I mean, the joke about standing on a putting green with your arms closed, and, hey, if you open your stance or close your stance or stand on your head or whatever it was, just random stuff, is now all of a sudden it's all pretty well thought out. We know that this happens when you do this, the cause and effect of it, and they're really, really pretty cool. So
yeah. Well, I'm hoping people, who follow you through this and on your blog will just keep looking for little inklings of where things are going. But even if they don't, they look at the posts that you did. I'm going to put them in the thing about, about being average or not being average. I thought that was a great series of posts that you did. So,
well, I appreciate it all. And if anybody needs to reach me, they can Instagram, Facebook. I'm on all those. Reach out. I've simplified the online program to basically it's a 30-day discussion.
Nice.
For players. So that way I can, because it used to be we just talk forever, right? And well, now we're condensing it a little bit because it's harder for me to do it all like I did, but it's worked out real well. I've signed up guys. What's really fun is Asian Tour. Just real quick, the hardest one I've ever done online is a young man that's playing on a Japanese mini tour who doesn't speak much English. So I have to take the documents like you've seen that I do, and I have to translate them to Japanese. Then I send them to a friend to make sure I'm saying what I want to say, and then we send them to him. So it's about a week process just to have a weaken your grip. But it made me a better teacher. You got to be a better communicator.
The Golf Improvement Podcast is sponsored by Tony Wright and Game Improvement Golf. Tony creates exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Thanks, Bruce. I hope you keep going for it in terms of creating putters based on all of the knowledge you've accumulated. about how to design them to help golfers to putt better than average. I put a link in the show notes to Bruce's Burnt Edges Consulting blog, and I suggest you take the time to read his Putting Better Than Average posts. I also look forward to seeing new posts from Bruce about his future progress on making his putter designs available to golfers. My shout out today is about a daily meditation app I've been using for the past 2 months, titled Waking Up, created by Sam Harris. I found that using this app to do daily meditations has been very valuable to me. It's quite a bit different than many other meditation apps, I think, but it really hits a home run for me personally. I put a link to the Waking Up app in the show notes. I love getting to bring experts like Bruce Rearick to share information with you on my podcast and to share things I don't expect many of you will be exposed to in your golf improvement efforts. A reminder that there's a support Game Improvement Golf link in the show notes for this podcast, and if you can provide some support, that will be greatly appreciated. Thanks. Well, that's it for today. In 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get to listen to biomechanist Dr. Sasha McKenzie, co-founder of the development of the Stack Swing Speed Improvement Training System. Well, there's now a beta version of a Stack putting improvement system built into Stack, and Sasha will talk about that really exciting development. Until then, take care, God bless Ukraine, and God bless America.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com